My dear brother, my dear sister, sometimes in life, Allah allows one test that changes everything. It may come quietly, through heartbreak, through loss, or through something you never expected. It may come at a time when you were doing everything right, when your heart was sincere and your intentions were pure, and that's why it hurts so deeply. You start asking, why would Allah test me when all I wanted was good? But this is not a punishment, it's a preparation. The test you're facing is not there to destroy you. It's there to reveal you, to show you the strength you never knew you had, to remind you who your protector has always been. Sometimes Allah takes away what you thought you couldn't live without, so you finally remember the one you truly can't live without. He closes doors not to harm you, but to turn you toward the door that never closes, His mercy. When you lose something, He replaces it with wisdom. When people leave, He fills the space with peace. And when your heart breaks, He uses that crack to let His light enter. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are being shaped by the most loving. Every tear, every delay, every unanswered prayer, all of it is part of the same plan that will one day make sense. Because Allah never wastes pain. He turns it into purpose. So don't think this test came to stop your story. It came to begin it. Because every believer who was chosen for something greater was first taken through something harder. And you right now are in that sacred chapter of becoming. The test that awakens your soul. There comes a time when life quietly exposes what your lips claim and what your heart truly follows. When the test arrives, it doesn't just hurt, it reveals. When everything is taken from you, when comfort disappears, when people change, when plans fail, that's when you discover who you really worship. Because worship is not only about prayer, it's about what your heart runs to when everything falls apart. You can say, I believe in Allah 1,000 times, but the real proof of that belief comes the day He removes what you thought you couldn't live without. If the loss of a person destroys your peace, if the closing of a door shatters your faith, then perhaps your heart was bowing to something other than Him. It's easy to praise Allah when life is smiling at you, but true faith is seen when the world turns silent and you still whisper, I trust you. Allah tests us not to humiliate us, but to show us what we've built our peace upon. He asks, was it me or was it something temporary? So when He removes money, He's not being harsh. He's asking, did you worship the provider or the provision? When He takes away a person, He's asking, did you love them for my sake or did you make them your purpose? When He delays a dream, He's saying, did you want the success more than you wanted me beside you? Every test is an X-ray of the heart. It shows who sits on its throne. Sometimes you don't even realize how deeply attached you've become. Your heart wraps around something so tightly that it forgets its first owner. You start depending on the job, the friend, the praise, the routine, and slowly, without noticing, your peace begins to rely on creation, not the Creator. Then Allah, in His mercy, begins to loosen your grip. He takes away what you cling to. And the harder you fight to hold on, the more it slips. You'll cry, you'll beg, you'll question. But later you'll see He wasn't being cruel. He was performing spiritual surgery. He was cutting away what was poisoning your heart with attachment. He was freeing you from silent slavery. When Allah truly loves someone, He doesn't let them worship anything but Him. So He removes false gods, not made of stone or gold, but made of emotions, dreams, and people. He removes them until your forehead meets the ground. And you say, maybe for the first time, and really mean it, Ya Allah, I have no one but You. And in that surrender, your soul breathes for the first time. That's when real peace begins. Not the kind that depends on circumstances, but the kind that lives inside even when everything outside is falling apart. You may think, but why does Allah have to test me this way? Because only pressure reveals purity. Gold is purified through fire. Hearts are purified through loss. Without pain, you would never know what you truly worship. You would think your faith is strong, but you wouldn't realize it was tied to the comfort He gave, not the love He deserves. Tests remove illusion. They strip away false layers until only truth remains. And the truth is, you were never meant to rely on anything except Him. Every time you depend too much on someone, life will remind you how fragile they are. Every time you build your peace on something that can end, Allah will remind you that He is the only one who never ends. That's not cruelty, that's mercy. Because the day your heart stops chasing creation and starts resting in the Creator, that's the day you taste a peace that no heartbreak can steal. Sometimes your greatest act of worship is not in your words, but in your patience. It's in the moment you don't understand what's happening, yet you choose to trust anyway. That's faith, not perfect understanding, but peaceful surrender. It's easy to worship when life goes right. But when you can still say Alhamdulillah while everything is falling apart, that's when you've truly met Allah with your heart, not just your tongue. When you lose something and still choose gratitude, you become a witness that faith is real. Because anyone can love Allah in blessings, but few can love Him in tests. That's why the most beloved to Him were always tested the most. They weren't special because they were perfect. They were special because they stayed loyal when life made no sense. Every tear they shed was a declaration. No matter what you take, I will still choose you. Sometimes you think you're being punished, but you're actually being purified. Allah loves you too much to let you keep loving the wrong things. He will take away what you depend on until you learn dependence on Him alone. You'll realize one day the heartbreak wasn't cruelty. It was correction. It was mercy in disguise. He took something from your hand to place Himself in your heart. When Allah breaks what was blocking you, there will come a moment in your life when something you built with your whole heart suddenly collapses. The plan you trusted stops working. The dream you invested everything in begins to fade. A relationship that once felt like home becomes a stranger's silence. And you're left standing in the middle of it all, asking, why did Allah let this happen? You see, sometimes Allah doesn't destroy what you built to hurt you. He breaks it because it was blocking you, blocking your growth, blocking your peace, blocking your connection with Him. You thought that job, that friendship, that path was your security, your success. You prayed to keep it, to protect it, to make it last. But Allah saw what you couldn't. He saw how that very thing you begged Him to preserve was quietly becoming your prison. It was shaping your identity more than your faith. You were slowly worshipping the plan instead of the planner. So out of His mercy, not His anger, He let it fall apart. Sometimes He lets your comfort collapse because you started trusting the gift more than the giver. You got used to that stability. You forgot that it was borrowed. You stopped asking for guidance because you thought you had control. So He breaks the illusion gently, firmly, perfectly. Not to destroy you, but to wake you. Because you would never leave that comfort willingly. It would keep you stuck in an old chapter of your life that no longer serves your soul. And when it finally breaks, you sit in confusion. You cry, you question, you feel abandoned. But slowly, if you quiet the noise and listen carefully, you'll realize the breaking was not rejection, it was redirection. It was Allah saying, I need you to walk away from this wall so I can show you the door behind it. The wall of comfort, the wall of pride, the wall of attachment, the wall that made you believe you didn't need Him. Every soul reaches a stage where growth requires loss. You cannot expand without space. And you cannot find space until something that filled your heart is removed. So Allah removes it. The wrong people, the wrong job, the wrong city, the wrong dream. He removes what was blocking your next chapter. And yes, it hurts Because every breaking feels like dying. But what's dying is not you. It's the version of you that was never meant to stay. When Allah loves you, He refuses to let you stay buried in comfort. He will stir your heart with restlessness. He will allow disappointment to visit you. He will let the ground beneath you shift until you finally lift your eyes and say, Ya Allah, where are you leading me? And that question, that moment of surrender is where transformation begins. The same pain that made you fall to your knees becomes the bridge that leads you to His mercy. Sometimes you don't see the blessing in the breaking because you are standing too close to the wreckage. When something breaks, all you can see are the sharp edges, the loss, the fear, the emptiness. But if you step back with time, you'll notice that Allah was not taking something away. He was moving you to where your light could finally reach its full potential. It's like a seed underground. It has to crack before it can rise. If it never broke open, it would stay buried forever. And you too have to crack, not to be destroyed, but to be released. Your pain is the sound of growth. Your confusion is the noise of old walls falling. Your heartbreak is the door unlocking. Allah is not breaking you apart. He's breaking you open. You may say, but I prayed for this to work. I begged Allah to keep it. And He did hear you. He always hears. But what if His no was actually Him protecting you from a path that would have dimmed your soul? He saw the future, you couldn't. He saw the harm that hid behind what looked good. He saw how that comfort would eventually become your cage. So He broke it early to save you later. Every breaking in your life was written with precision. Not one event happened by accident. Not one heartbreak was wasted. Each was chosen to remove a blockage, to push you toward the person He knows you can become. If you lost someone, maybe they were blocking your peace. If you failed at something, maybe it was blocking your purpose. If you were delayed, maybe rushing would have ruined what was meant for you. You see, His wisdom often looks like loss in the beginning, but with time, it always turns into mercy. So don't curse the collapse. Don't fear the fall. The breaking you're crying over today is often the blessing you'll thank Him for tomorrow. Sometimes you have to lose the plan to find the purpose. And sometimes you have to watch your dream fall apart to realize it was built on the wrong foundation. Allah breaks only what stands between you and Him. He removes only what you were never meant to worship. The day will come when you look back and say, Alhamdulillah for the breaking, because the very thing that shattered you was what freed you from everything false. He broke the chain you thought was protection. He shattered the illusion you thought was happiness. And through that loss, He gave you something priceless. Clarity. You'll start to see how the path that hurt you was actually the road that healed you. The rejection that crushed your pride was the protection that preserved your heart. The delay that made you restless was the divine timing that prepared your future. And the fall that left you empty was the moment He filled you with Himself. Every soul that rises must first be broken, because you can't hold divine light in a heart still full of worldly weight. So Allah empties you, sometimes suddenly, sometimes painfully, but always lovingly. He takes so He can give better. He delays so He can deliver deeper. He breaks so He can rebuild beautifully. You may not understand it today. You may still cry when you think about what you lost. That's okay. Crying doesn't mean you lack faith. It means your heart is healing from what your eyes couldn't yet see. But one day, when the new door opens, the one that fits your soul perfectly, you'll whisper, now I understand why it had to break. The silence that speaks louder than words. There comes a point in every believer's journey when the world grows quiet and heaven seems even quieter. You pray, you cry, you beg for a sign, for a whisper, for something. But the only thing you hear is silence. And that silence feels heavy. It feels like the doors of the sky have closed, like every word you utter bounces back to you unanswered. You start to wonder, did Allah forget me? Did I do something wrong? Why can't I feel Him anymore? But what if the silence isn't distance? What if it's divine attention in disguise? Allah's silence is not a punishment, it's a pause. It's the sacred space between your request and His perfect response. He could answer instantly, yes, but He knows your heart still needs to learn trust. So He quiets the world around you. He allows the phone to stop ringing, the messages to stop arriving, the distractions to fade. He creates a stillness that feels unbearable, because in that stillness, you are forced to listen to your own soul again. The silence is not an empty void, it is a classroom, and the lesson is patience. When you first face silence, you panic. You start searching for signs, opening random pages, listening to endless lectures, asking people to interpret your pain. But eventually you realize that nothing outside you will speak. Until you quiet what's inside you, you've been begging for answers while your mind never stopped running. You've been searching for peace while your heart never stopped arguing. The silence comes to slow you down, to reset the rhythm of your faith. It's not that Allah stopped responding, it's that He's teaching you to recognize that peace itself was the answer all along. Sometimes the most merciful thing He can do is to delay every answer until your faith stops depending on outcomes. Because when He finally gives you what you asked for, you love the giver more than the gift. But right now, if He gave it too soon, you'd think it was your effort that made it happen. So He keeps you waiting, not because you're forgotten, but because you're being protected from arrogance. Silence saves you from pride. Silence matures your soul. Silence reveals whether you love Allah for what He gives or simply for who He is. During the silent chapters, you begin to notice the small things again, the breath that still flows, the food still on your table, the heartbeat that hasn't stopped. Each one is a quiet answer you never acknowledged. He's been responding the whole time, not with words, but with continuity. He kept you alive while you thought He was ignoring you. He kept blessing you while you questioned His presence. He kept forgiving you while you doubted His mercy. Silence is not absence, it's invisible generosity. When a teacher wants to see how much the student has learnt, they stop explaining and start observing. The room goes quiet. The student feels lost for a moment, but that's how growth is measured. Your silence period is your spiritual exam. He's watching to see whether you still remember the lessons from your days of comfort. Do you still pray with sincerity? When the feelings of peace have faded, do you still trust His plan? When no miracle appears, do you still whisper thank you when nothing seems to change? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, you've passed. Silence also has another beauty. It reveals your hidden attachments. When Allah stops answering quickly, you begin to see what your heart runs to for relief. Do you scroll endlessly, trying to numb the pain? Do you pour your story into people who cannot heal you? Or do you sit quietly, even through the ache, knowing He is near even when you can't feel Him? That is worship in its purest form, faith without evidence, belief without confirmation, love without visible reward. The silence teaches you that Allah's love is not transactional. He doesn't respond only when you're strong. He stays near even when you're broken and speechless. Sometimes He hides His comfort to teach you how to look for Him inside your discomfort. He hides His voice to make you realize that He was never a sound, He was always a presence. When your dua feels unanswered, remember, He is answering in ways you can't yet read. He's rewriting something quietly behind the curtain of time. Patience doesn't mean waiting without pain. It means trusting through the pain. So while you wait, don't fill the silence with panic. Fill it with gratitude. Say, I don't understand, but I trust you. I don't see the wisdom yet, but I know it's there. I can't hear you right now, but I believe you can hear me. Those words, soft, trembling, sincere, shake the gates of mercy. There will come a night when you cry again, but this time the tears will feel lighter. You'll realize you no longer beg for answers. You just beg for closeness. That's when you've grown. That's when silence has done its job. Because the goal of silence was never to make you suffer. It was to transform the noise inside you into remembrance. When you reach that stage, you'll notice that even the quiet moments of the night feel full of warmth. You'll stop asking, why is he silent? And start whispering, thank you for teaching me to listen. One day, you look back and understand. If Allah had answered you immediately, you would have gained what you wanted but lost what you needed. The delay didn't destroy you, it developed you. The silence didn't reject you, it refined you. You learned patience. You learned humility. You learned that even when words stop, mercy continues. That realization, that deep, quiet awareness is what silence was meant to gift you. When Allah removes everyone, so you find Him alone, there comes a season in your life when the noise fades, the laughter around you stops echoing, and suddenly you realize you're standing alone. The friends who once called every day become quiet. The people you trusted stop showing up. Even the ones who promised they'd never leave begin to drift like clouds you can no longer reach. At first, it feels like punishment. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Why is everyone disappearing? But that loneliness is not rejection, it's redirection. It's Allah rearranging your circle so He can enter the center. When life empties, it is not always a loss. It is an invitation to meet the one who never leaves. Allah knows how tightly you hold on to people. He knows the way you crave conversation, how you seek comfort in familiar faces, how you lean on human shoulders that were never built to carry the weight of your soul. So in mercy, He begins to take them away one by one, not to break your heart, but to free it from dependence. He wants to teach you that peace isn't found in company, it's found in connection. And that connection begins when everything else is silent. In the beginning, you resist. You try to fix what's fading. You chase, you call, you beg for attention. But the more you reach, the further they go. That's not cruelty, it's divine protection. Because He heard the prayers you made when you asked for closeness to Him. He saw how crowded your heart had become. So He started clearing the path. The friend who betrayed you was actually being moved, so you could learn sincerity. The person who ignored you was being removed, so you could learn self-respect. The loneliness that keeps you awake at night is the quiet hour He chose to meet you in. Loneliness feels empty only until you fill it with His presence. Sit in that stillness. Listen to your breathing. You'll realize it's not silence, it's space. Space for reflection. Space for remembrance. Space for the version of you that had been buried under constant noise and endless people. When Allah removes everyone, it's so you can finally hear the sound of your own soul whispering His name. Sometimes He isolates you because He's about to elevate you. Before He builds you publicly, He hides you privately. Just as a seed disappears beneath the soil, before it breaks into light, you too must go through a season of unseen growth. People will think you've been forgotten, but in truth, you're being prepared. He's teaching you patience, resilience, and sincerity. Lessons that can only grow in solitude. You'll notice that the world's opinions start to matter less. You'll stop explaining yourself. You'll stop chasing validation. Because once you've tasted the sweetness of being understood by Allah, you'll no longer crave constant understanding from people. That's what isolation does. It purifies your motives. You begin to pray not to be seen, but simply to be heard. You start doing good quietly, not for applause, but for acceptance. The nights that once felt heavy with loneliness become the nights you now look forward to, because that's when you talk to Him freely. That's when your tears finally make sense. That's when your heart softens enough to say, Ya Allah, maybe you took everyone away just to show me that you were enough all along. Inna man ha ana. And He smiles upon that realization, because that was the goal of the entire journey. It's strange, isn't it? The same silence that once scared you becomes the silence you now protect. The same empty room that once made you cry becomes your sacred sanctuary. You stop seeing solitude as punishment and start seeing it as presence. His presence, you start noticing small mercies again. The sunrise, the warmth of your breath, the rhythm of your heartbeat, each one whispering, He's still with you. In time, He will bring new people back into your life, but they'll be different. They'll understand you deeper. They'll walk with you without pulling you away from Him, because once you learn to find Allah alone, He sends companions who remind you of Him, not distract you from Him. That's how you know your solitude worked. And one day, when you look back at the chapters of emptiness, you'll realize they were not empty at all. They were full of unseen mercy, full of quiet lessons, full of invisible love. You weren't abandoned. You were being personalized by your Creator. He removed everyone so you could finally see the one who had been carrying you all along when the thing you loved most becomes the test. Every soul eventually faces a moment it never expected, a moment when the very thing that once made your heart light up suddenly becomes the source of your deepest pain. It could be a person you loved with all your heart. It could be a dream you built with all your energy. It could be a future you prayed for every night. And then one day it begins to slip through your fingers. No matter how tightly you hold on, it keeps drifting away. And you feel helpless, confused, heartbroken. You whisper, why Allah? Why would you take away what I prayed for? Didn't you see how much I loved it? But what if that's exactly the reason He took it? Love is beautiful. Love softens the heart, teaches mercy, makes you human. But love can also become dangerous when it starts taking the place of its giver. Sometimes we don't notice it happening. We start building our peace around someone's voice, our worth around someone's approval, our comfort around someone's presence. And slowly, without realizing it, our hearts begin to depend on what was never meant to be permanent. Allah sees it long before we do. He watches as our love for His gift starts to eclipse our love for Him. He waits gently, patiently, and when the heart refuses to let go, He sends a test not to harm us, but to remind us where real peace belongs. So one day, the person changes, the dream fades. The thing you once called mine is no longer yours. It hurts so much because your heart had wrapped itself around it. It feels like losing a part of yourself. But you see, Allah didn't remove it to leave you empty. He removed it so you could return to being whole. You thought that love was everything. But Allah knew that love was quietly teaching you to worship something else. He couldn't let you walk further into that illusion because He loves you too much to let you be enslaved by a temporary gift. You'll cry at first. Your prayers will be full of tears instead of words. Your heart will ache for what was. But those tears are not weakness, they're cleansing. They wash away the layers of attachment until only sincerity remains. You'll realize that true love is not about holding on. It's about being willing to surrender what you love for the sake of the one who gave it. Think about it. If He gave you the strength to love something deeply, then surely He can heal you when it's gone. And perhaps this love was never meant to be your destination, only your direction. It was meant to teach you how to feel, how to care, how to give, how to forgive. So that when it ended, you'd finally understand what divine love really feels like. Sometimes Allah takes away what you love most, to show you that it was never the source of your happiness. He was. You didn't smile because of them, you smiled because of the peace He placed in your heart through them. You didn't heal because of them, you healed because He used them as a tool for your growth. When He removes the tool, the lesson remains, and that lesson is love purified by pain. He will replace your dependency on people with intimacy in prayer. He will replace your conversations with them with midnight whispers that calm your soul in ways words never could. At first, it feels lonely, but slowly you start realizing you were never truly alone. You were simply distracted by love that had an expiry date. Allah's love doesn't expire. It doesn't change its tone or walk away when you're difficult. It stays, always. There's a secret kind of love that only heartbreak can teach. When you lose what you loved most, you start loving Allah. Not out of routine, but out of need, out of recognition that nothing else lasts. That kind of love is pure. It's raw, it's real. You stop saying, I love Allah because He gives. You start saying, I love Him even when He takes. And that's when love transforms into faith. Maybe right now you're still holding on in pain, checking your phone for a message that never comes, scrolling through memories you wish you could relive. It's okay. Healing takes time. Allah doesn't rush the process. He writes it gently day by day. He knows how much you gave. He saw the sincerity of your heart. He also saw how much it was costing your soul. So He intervened, not to punish you, but to protect you. He knows that sometimes the only way to save you is to let what you love fall apart. At some point, you'll begin to breathe again. The pain will soften. Your heart will stop fighting reality. And that's when the truth will rise like dawn after a long night. You never lost love. You were being redirected to its purest form. He took one attachment away to open the door to a love that doesn't need conditions, that doesn't fade, that doesn't end. He was calling you back to Himself. You might think, but I can't stop missing them. Adubi fa in ta'ala ala. That's okay. Missing something doesn't mean you failed the test. It means you're human. Allah doesn't ask you to erase your emotions. He asks you to manage them with remembrance. So whenever you miss them, turn that longing into dua. Whenever you remember their kindness, thank Allah for allowing you to experience it. Whenever you feel the emptiness, fill it with gratitude for the one who still fills your lungs with air. That's how you heal, with awareness, not avoidance. The most beautiful part comes later, when you finally meet something new, someone new, a new dream, a new chapter, and you realize you're no longer desperate to keep it. You've learned that everything belongs to Allah. So now, instead of holding tightly, you hold responsibly, with balance, with boundaries, with peace, that's when you know you've passed the test. The thing you loved most became the test, not to show you that you were weak, but to prove that your heart was capable of higher love. It was Allah reminding you, your heart was created to love deeply, but only I can handle its depth without breaking it. So He broke what you loved to reveal what your heart was really made for. Unconditional trust. After the storm of loss, the world looks different. The mornings feel quieter. Even the air seems heavier because everything reminds you of what once was. You walk past familiar places and your chest tightens. You hear a song, a laugh, a phrase, and suddenly the ache returns. That's okay. Pain doesn't vanish overnight. It fades layer by layer. Each layer teaching you something new about yourself and about Allah. Every tear that falls now carries wisdom. It whispers, you survived what you thought you never could. That realization is the first light of healing. Little by little, the emptiness begins to shift. Where there used to be endless noise inside you, there's now stillness, uncomfortable at first, but sacred. You start talking to Allah in ways you never did before. Not with rehearsed prayers, but with raw honesty. Ya Allah, I don't know what to do, I'm lost. And He listens. He always listens. Even the sighs you think no one hears are heard by Him. That's how you start rebuilding, not by rushing forward, but by learning to sit with Him in the quiet. Soon you notice that what you once begged to get back no longer owns you. The memories still visit, but they no longer control the room. They become stories, not chains. You begin to see that love was never the problem. Attachment without balance was. Love, when pure, leads you back to Allah. Attachment, when blind, leads you away. The test wasn't meant to erase your ability to love. It was meant to purify. A purified heart loves differently. It loves gently, not desperately. It gives, but it doesn't beg. It holds, but it doesn't cling. Because now it knows that everything it holds belongs to Allah first. You start loving people for His sake, not for your need. You start caring without expecting. You start giving without fearing loss. That's spiritual maturity, the kind that can only be born through heartbreak. Sometimes you'll wonder why it had to be so painful. Couldn't Allah have taught the same lesson softly? But some hearts only wake up through cracks. Light doesn't enter through perfection, it enters through wounds. He allowed the wound so light could find its way in. He allowed the breaking so you could finally stop worshipping the image of happiness you built and start seeking the one who is happiness itself. Months or maybe years later, you'll stand somewhere new. You'll smile again, sincerely this time. Not because life is perfect, but because you've learned to find peace even when it isn't. You'll feel gratitude for the pain that once felt unbearable. You'll whisper, if that didn't happen, I would have still been chasing something that was never mine. That's when you realize the loss didn't destroy you, it redirected you toward purpose. Every heartbreak rewrites your relationship with Allah. Before, you may have known Him through habit, through prayer times, through culture, through routine. After heartbreak, you know Him through intimacy. You've cried in His presence. You've confessed your fears. You've felt His comfort when no one else showed up. That experience changes everything. It teaches you that your value isn't in who stays, but in who sustains you when everyone leaves. Now, when you love again, you love with awareness. You whisper dua before giving your heart. You set boundaries not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You've learned that love is safest when it flows through Him first. If the new love stays, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. If it leaves, alhamdulillah, it's a lesson. Either way, you no longer lose yourself. That is the hidden mercy behind the test. Allah didn't remove love from your life. He elevated it. He turned it from something that consumed you into something that completes you. The more you love Him, the better you love everything else. That's the secret most hearts never discover. They chase love that fills their hands instead of love that fills their soul. But now you know the difference. So when you look back on the thing you loved most, don't see failure, see transformation. That love taught you empathy, patience, humility. It forced you to face your limits and find His. It took your shattered pieces and arranged them into strength. It turned you from someone who begged for human love into someone who gives divine love. And one quiet night you'll lie down, not crying from loss, but crying from gratitude. You'll say softly, Ya Allah, thank you for breaking what I was building wrong. Thank you for loving me enough to take what I couldn't let go of. Thank you for replacing it with yourself. In that moment, you'll finally understand the thing you loved most was never meant to be your destination. It was the road that led you home. That is when the test ends. Not when the pain disappears, but when your heart bows in peace and whispers, whatever you choose for me, I choose it too. Now become min nabi fakadi. And Allah, the most gentle, looks upon that heart and says, this is the heart I was shaping all along. When your heart finally reaches that level of calm, a new kind of love begins to grow inside you. Not the kind that rushes, clings, or fears loss, but the kind that flows quietly, peacefully, because it's rooted in faith. You learn that real love doesn't trap, it frees. Real love doesn't burn out, it grows steady like light. Real love doesn't demand, it prays. You start to see that the heart that breaks for Allah is the same heart that becomes strong enough to hold His blessings. You are no longer the same person you were when you first fell in love with what He took away. You've been refined by fire, and that fire has turned your pain into gold. That's the thing about divine tests. They don't just end, they transform you. The person you become after a test is someone you would have never met without it. You become more patient, more gentle, more aware of how fragile and beautiful this world is. You speak softer, you forgive quicker, you stop expecting perfection from people because you've seen how perfectly Allah handled your imperfection. The next time you love differently. You'll begin it with dua, continue it with boundaries, and hold it with humility. You'll stop saying, I can't live without them, and start saying, if Allah wills, we'll walk together in peace, and if not, I'll still live with gratitude. That's the difference between attachment and surrender. Attachment says, I need this to survive. Surrender says, if it's written, it will stay. If not, Allah will give me better. That's freedom. That's love without fear. You see, every test about love is really a test about trust. Allah doesn't just test what you love. He tests why you love. Was it for His sake or for your satisfaction? Was it because of how it made you feel or because of how it made you grow? And if He takes it away, can you still say Alhamdulillah through the tears? That's the level of faith that opens gates of peace. No heartbreak can close. There's something sacred in realizing that Allah is the only one who can take from you and still leave you richer than before. When people leave, they take pieces of your heart. But when Allah takes something, He fills that space with Himself. He doesn't leave a void. He plants understanding there. He replaces longing with light. He replaces ache with wisdom. He replaces heartbreak with closeness. That's why the ones who've loved and lost deeply often have the most peaceful faces, because somewhere along the way they stopped chasing people and started chasing peace. Your test was not proof that you loved wrong. It was proof that you loved deeply enough for Allah to refine that love into worship. He saw that your heart had the capacity to feel, so He decided to purify it until it could carry love that would never harm it again. So, no, you weren't being punished, you were being prepared for greater love, deeper peace, and stronger faith. One day, you'll look back and see the pattern clearly. Every heartbreak pushed you closer to Allah. Every disappointment pulled you away from illusions. Every loss replaced your neediness with strength. And you'll smile softly and say, I thought He was taking love away from me, but He was teaching me what love really is. That's when the pain will make perfect sense. Now, when you see others crying over loss, you'll comfort them differently. You won't tell them to forget or move on. You'll tell them to transform it. You'll tell them that love doesn't end when it leaves. It just changes form. It becomes compassion, empathy, gratitude. It becomes fuel for dubi'ah. It becomes the reason you pray for hearts you no longer hold. And in that prayer, you'll find a peace that's even better than the love you lost. Because when Allah takes something from you, He doesn't just restore it later. He upgrades your heart first. He makes sure that when blessings return, you can hold them without them owning you. You can love without losing yourself. You can give without breaking apart. That's divine repair. A healing so quiet, so deep, that by the time you realize it's happened, you've already outgrown the pain that once defined you. There will come a day when you thank Him for every unanswered prayer. You look at what you once begged for and say, if you had given me that, I wouldn't have found this peace. And that gratitude will be your victory. Because it means your heart no longer sees through tears. It sees through trust. When the thing you loved most became the test, it wasn't to punish you for loving. It was to teach you how to love correctly. Not with desperation, not with fear, not with attachment, but with faith. And that kind of love that's purified, surrendered, and rooted in remembrance, can never be broken again. So breathe. You didn't lose. You evolved. You didn't fail the test. You became its living answer. Because when Allah took what you loved most, you didn't stop loving. You simply learned how to love through Him. And that is the most beautiful victory a heart can ever know. When failure is actually protection, every one of us has tasted failure. That moment when the door you were sure would open closes right in front of you. When you study, plan, dream, pray, and yet nothing seems to work. You look at others moving ahead and whisper, "Why not me? I did everything right." The silence that follows that question feels cruel. But what if the failure you're crying over is actually Allah's way of saying, "I'm saving you from what you can't see"? Failure is not rejection, it's redirection. You think you lost an opportunity, but perhaps you lost a disaster. You think you were left behind, but maybe you were being held back until the road was safe. What looks like delay on earth is often divine protection from heaven. We humans see only the surface. We chase what glitters, we trust what looks perfect. But Allah sees the cracks, the traps, the hidden pain behind success. So when you run towards something that will harm you, He quietly changes the path. You call it failure, He calls it mercy. Sometimes you're so convinced that something is meant for you that when it collapses, you feel betrayed. You question your prayers, your worth, your effort. But Allah is not cruel. He doesn't take without reason. He removes because He knows what the future holds. If He allowed you to succeed in that thing you wanted so much, you might have lost your peace, your values, or your connection with Him. So He gently let it break before it could break you. Failure is also a mirror. It shows you what you were really chasing. Sometimes you discover that you weren't seeking Allah's pleasure. You were seeking your own validation. You wanted the job, the person, the success, not because it brought you closer to Him, but because it made you feel enough. And when it disappears, you finally see how fragile your sense of worth had become. That realization is painful, but it's the first step toward real success. The kind that doesn't collapse when circumstances change. Do you remember the times you begged Allah to protect you from anything that would harm your heart? This is the answer to that prayer. Protection doesn't always look like comfort. Sometimes it looks like losing what you thought was best for you. Sometimes it looks like failure, but in reality, it's fulfillment of the very duha you made. Allah's protection works quietly. He blocks what you can't handle. He exposes what you can't see. He delays what would have destroyed your peace. You'll only understand it later when you've walked far enough down the new road to look back and whisper, "Alhamdulillah, it didn't work out the way I wanted." That's when everything clicks. The failure that once felt like the end becomes the chapter that saved you. Failure also builds humility. It brings you back to your knees. Success can make you forget how small you are. Failure reminds you. It wipes away arrogance, replaces pride with patience, and turns you from self-reliant to God-reliant. That shift is priceless, because only when you depend fully on Him do you start achieving what truly matters. When you experience repeated failures, it's easy to think, maybe I'm cursed, maybe I'm not good enough. But what if you're being trained instead of punished? Allah trains His chosen ones through repetition. He lets them fall so they can learn to rise. He lets them lose so they can learn gratitude beyond gain. Each time you fall and get up again, your faith muscles grow stronger. Your patience stretches. Your resilience becomes real. That's not failure, that's preparation. Every disappointment you faced is part of a design you can't yet read. He's been arranging people, places, and timing with precision. If one piece had moved differently, your entire story might have collapsed. So he rearranged everything. Even the things you prayed would stay the same to align you with something better. You see, success is not measured by how fast you arrive. It's measured by how pure your heart remains while you're waiting. Sometimes Allah slows your pace so your character can catch up to your blessings. If He gave you everything too soon, your heart wouldn't be ready to hold it. So He teaches you through waiting, through failing, through trying again. Think of a child learning to walk. Each fall is necessary. Each stumble builds balance. The parent doesn't panic, they smile because they know the falling is part of walking. That's how Allah looks at your failures. He's not disappointed in you. He's teaching you how to stand stronger, how to walk wiser, how to live with faith instead of fear. You'll notice that after every major failure, a new version of you appears. The one that prays deeper, the one that sees through illusion, the one that knows what truly matters. That version is the real victory. Because worldly success fades, but wisdom gained through pain lasts forever. Failure also protects your heart from pride. Imagine if every plan you made worked. You'd start believing you were in control. You'd forget who gave you the ability to plan at all. So sometimes failure is a divine reset, a gentle reminder that you are not the author, only the character in His story. When you trust Allah's script, you stop calling the plot twists unfair. You start calling them necessary, because every no today is a better yes waiting in tomorrow. And the moment you stop fighting the path and start walking it with trust, the peace you were searching for finally arrives. So if you're in a season of failure right now, pause and breathe. Don't let your mind label it as loss. Look deeper. Ask yourself, what could Allah be protecting me from? What lesson might He be preparing me for? That shift in perspective turns despair into discovery. Every test ends with a reward. For some, the reward is success. For others, it's strength. For the patient ones, it's both. The doors that closed on you today were never your doors to begin with. Your door is still ahead. And when you reach it, you'll realize why the others had to stay shut. You will rise again. Not because everything magically fixes itself, but because Allah never leaves the heart that trusts Him. He will replace what you lost with something purer. He will turn your frustration into gratitude. He will transform your wounds into wisdom. And one day, you look at the scars and see them not as reminders of pain, but as signatures of protection. Failure has a strange sound when it first arrives. It echoes like the closing of a heavy door, final, sharp, cruel. But if you stay still long enough, you begin to hear another sound beneath it. A softer door opening somewhere you hadn't noticed before. That's how Allah works. He never shuts one chapter without preparing the next. He never ends a story without planting a seed for the sequel. The problem is that when you're hurting, you can't see the new beginning forming quietly in the background. You're too busy staring at what just ended. That's why faith is needed most when nothing makes sense. Failure feels like darkness, but it's actually Allah switching off the light in a room you were never meant to live in. You cry because you can't see. He smiles because He's leading you out. He knows there's sunlight ahead, but to reach it, you must let your eyes adjust to the dark first. Sometimes He hides success from you because He knows it would have hidden you from Him. If He gave you every victory early, your gratitude might fade into pride, and pride poisons even the purest hearts. So He delays your triumph until humility becomes your permanent companion. That delay is mercy disguised as disappointment. Think of your life like a woven carpet. From underneath, it looks messy, threads tangled, colors clashing. That's your view during failure. But from above, Allah sees a masterpiece. Every knot, every color, every break placed perfectly to create beauty. The very tangle that frustrates you is the design that defines you. If you could see how many traps He has protected you from, how many heartbreaks He has redirected, how many disasters He quietly erased from your timeline, you would fall in prostration out of gratitude for the failures you once cursed. Every no from Allah hides a not yet or a not this. Every rejection saves you from a heartbreak that would have shattered more than your plans. It would have shattered your peace. You may think, but this was everything I wanted. And Allah answers softly, I know. That's why I had to stop it, because it was about to own you. He takes away what you cling to too tightly. He removes what starts sitting where he should be sitting in your heart. And when He does, He isn't being cruel. He's freeing you from silent slavery. Failure is not the enemy. Forgetting who protected you is. When you fail, He's inviting you back into His plan. He's saying, you tried your way, now come and try mine. That's not humiliation, it's elevation. Because every time you surrender after failing, you rise in faith, even if you haven't yet risen in status. The world measures success in trophies and titles. Allah measures it in trust and transformation. You might not get the job, but you get a heart that prays with sincerity. You might not get the relationship, but you get a soul that knows its worth. That's success of a higher order. The one written in the unseen, not on social media. Every fall teaches something different. One builds patience, one teaches gratitude. One deepens empathy for others who stumble. By the time you've failed enough times, you become gentle with everyone. You stop judging. You start guiding. You become the kind of person Allah can use to heal others, because you know what it feels like to bleed. Sometimes Allah will let you fail publicly so He can protect you privately. He let people walk away so He can walk in. He let plans collapse so you can finally stop leaning on them. He strips you of illusion to clothe you in clarity. He empties your hands to fill your heart. And though that process is painful, it's the only way to make space for something eternal. When you finally accept that failure was never lost, you start to see life differently. You no longer chase every opportunity. You chase the right ones. You no longer beg people to stay. You beg Allah to guide. Your heart becomes calm, not because everything is easy, but because you trust the one controlling it. Then, one day, a door opens quietly, effortlessly. No struggle this time, no begging, no forcing. It fits perfectly, like it was waiting only for you. That's when you'll realize this is what divine timing feels like. The failure from before wasn't punishment. It was precision. It was Allah delaying your arrival until the destination was safe. Look back now. Every so-called failure was a rope pulling you closer to Him. The heartbreak taught you empathy. The rejection taught you humility. The delay taught you patience. All those lessons stitched together created the person you are now. Someone softer, wiser, calmer. Someone who no longer chases outcomes, but shares peace. So the next time life says no, smile a little, whisper, maybe this is protection in disguise. Because one day soon, you'll see how every closed door was guarding something priceless inside you. Failure didn't destroy you. It delivered you back to the one who never fails. And that is the real definition of success. The storm that teaches you who you are. There comes a season in every believer's life when the skies above turn gray, the air grows heavy, and everything that once felt steady begins to shake. It's the storm, the one you didn't see coming, the one that makes you question everything you thought you knew. The storm of loss, the storm of heartbreak, the storm of confusion and silence. It doesn't knock on your door, it breaks through it. And suddenly, the life you recognized becomes unrecognizable. You used to feel strong, confident, calm. But now you wake up with trembling hands and a racing heart. You wonder, what's happening to me? Why is everything collapsing all at once? And the answer, though hard to accept, is this. Sometimes Allah sends the storm not to destroy you, but to reveal you. When everything is calm, you can pretend to know yourself. You can believe your faith is strong, your heart is stable, and your trust is deep. But when the winds start to rage and the waves crash against your plans, that's when you truly see what you're made of. The storm doesn't create weakness, it reveals it. It shows you the cracks that comfort once hid. It strips you of illusion. It takes away every fake layer you built to look okay and leaves only your raw, unfiltered soul. And that's where the real you lives, not in control, but in surrender. The storm has a strange way of teaching you what no calm day ever could. It teaches you how fragile your pride was, how small your strength actually is, and how desperately you depend on the one above you. It teaches you that your tears are not shame. They are proof that your heart is still alive. Because only a heart that feels deeply can cry sincerely. Only a believer who cares can fall to their knees and whisper, "Help me, Ya Allah." That whisper, small, trembling, unseen, is what the storm was sent for. When Allah loves you, He doesn't let you stay asleep in comfort for too long. He'll send a storm when you've grown too attached to calmness. He'll shake your world when your heart begins to trust it more than Him. Not to break you, but to wake you. Because the storm is not a curse, it's a classroom. And in that classroom, you learn lessons that ease could never teach. You learn what patience truly means. Not the pretty kind that sounds nice in quotes, but the gritty, painful patience of holding faith when nothing makes sense. You learn what gratitude feels like when you have nothing left to hold except His mercy. You learn what trust means when your plan is gone and you have no backup, and you learn what love for Allah really is. When your heart still chooses Him, even when He keeps taking, the storm will test everything about you. Your faith, your ego, your habits, your trust. It will test your ability to smile through fear and believe through tears. It will strip you of control so you can finally understand that control was never yours. It will isolate you from everyone so you can realize who your true companion always was. It will make you fall again and again until you learn that the ground you keep falling on is actually the safest place, your prayer mat. Some nights you'll feel like giving up. You'll whisper, "I can't take this anymore." And He'll whisper back through silence, "You're stronger than you think because I am with you." That's the secret of every storm. Akana alam. You think you're drowning, but in reality, you're being carried. He won't let the waves swallow you. He just lets them wash away everything that was never meant to stay. It hurts when people walk away during your storm. It hurts when you reach out for help and no one answers. But maybe they were never meant to hold your hand through this. Maybe this was the season where Allah wanted you all to Himself. So He let the boat get smaller. He reduced your circle. He quieted every voice until the only one left to listen to was His. And in that silence, you start hearing His mercy louder than ever before. The storm reveals who you are because it takes away who you were pretending to be. Before it came, you were surviving on routine. You prayed, but without presence. You smiled, but without sincerity. You worked, but without meaning. Then the storm hit, and suddenly you started praying like you meant it. You started crying like it mattered. You started seeking, searching, repenting, feeling again. The same storm that made you fall to your knees also lifted your soul toward the heavens. When you're in the middle of it, you'll think the storm is endless. But storms don't last forever. They come to do their job, to clean the air, to uproot what's rotten, to reveal what's real. And once they're done, they always leave behind clearer skies. You'll come out of it tired, yes, but wiser, softer, stronger. You'll come out of it knowing that you were never alone. That even when you felt abandoned, He was guiding every wave, every wind, every crash to push you exactly where you needed to be. Don't run from the storm, learn from it. Because inside the very chaos you fear is the strength you were praying for. It's strange, isn't it? You asked Allah to make you stronger, so He sent something to test your strength. You asked Him for wisdom, so He gave you pain to interpret. You asked Him for closeness, so He removed everything that was standing between you and Him. That's how He answers prayers. Not always with ease, but with evolution. When the storm finally calms, you'll realize it didn't just change your situation, it changed your soul. You'll start noticing things you never did before. How peaceful silence can be. How soft a single moment of sujood feels. How rich you can feel. Even with nothing but faith in your heart, you'll stop chasing validation. You'll stop running after what's temporary, because once you've survived the storm, you no longer fear losing things that can be taken away. You'll start walking lighter, loving deeper, and living slower. You'll pray differently, not out of fear of being tested again, but out of gratitude for what that test revealed. You'll see storms in other people's eyes, and instead of judging them, you'll whisper a silent dua. Ya Allah, guide them through it like you guided me. That empathy is proof that your storm wasn't wasted. It transformed you from someone who broke into someone who helps others rebuild. One day, the same waves that terrified you will look beautiful, because you'll see they were never trying to drown you. They were trying to carry you home. You'll thank Allah for every thunderclap, every sleepless night, every tear that once blurred your vision, because now those same tears have washed your eyes clean enough to see truth. The truth that you were never weak, you were just being rebuilt. When the storm first begins to fade, you're not immediately at peace. You're standing among the ruins of what used to be your life, and you don't know where to start. Rebuilding. The world looks different. You look different. You keep asking, why did it have to happen this way? And the answer echoes softly within you, because this was the only way you would finally see yourself clearly. Calm never shows you your depth. Storms do. You never discover how strong a tree is until the wind shakes it. You never realize how much faith you have until the ground beneath you breaks. The storm took away things, yes, people, comfort, security, plans, but it also took away illusions. It stripped your soul of the masks you didn't know you were wearing. It tore apart the image you had built of yourself, the one that said you were in control, that said you didn't need help, that said you were fine. And when that image shattered, you met the real you for the first time. The version that feels deeply, fears deeply, hopes deeply, and believes deeply. That's why the storm is sacred. It introduces you to your truth. At first you thought it broke you, but look closer. It only broke your arrogance. It broke your false strength. It broke the version of you that thought you could do everything alone. And once that version was gone, something softer, purer, wiser took its place. The storm made you humble, but it also made you whole. When you go through enough storms, you stop fearing the next one. You realize that no matter how loud the thunder, it can't erase what Allah has written for you. You start walking differently. You no longer panic when life shakes. You just close your eyes and whisper, Ya Allah, guide me through it, because you've seen it before. How every storm that once terrified you ended with peace that felt almost divine. You begin to understand that storms are not interruptions. They're instruments. They are Allah's way of sculpting souls. The same way waves polish, stones smooth, tests polish hearts into clarity. The wind that once pushed you down is now the same wind lifting you higher. You'll notice something beautiful. After surviving the storm, you stop chasing what's easy. You stop asking for a smooth life. Instead, you ask for a strong heart, because you've learned that peace doesn't come from the absence of storms. It comes from the presence of faith inside them. So you no longer beg Allah to remove the wind. You beg Him to hold your sail. That shift from asking for comfort to asking for strength is the moment you graduate spiritually. The storm also cleans your circle. Not everyone can handle you when you're broken. Not everyone will stay when you fall apart. And that's okay. Because the ones who leave during your storm were never meant to see your sunrise. Allah removes people in the storm to remind you that only He deserves complete trust. Some friends were there for your laughter, not your tears. Some loved you for your glow, not your growth. And that's why He allowed the wind to blow them away. It wasn't loneliness, it was purification. There's a deep stillness that follows the storm, a silence so pure it feels like mercy. You walk outside one morning and the air smells different. You feel lighter, clearer, softer. That's the scent of peace after survival. That's the breath of a soul that has wrestled with pain and come out praying instead of complaining. It's a quiet kind of joy, not loud like celebration, but deep like gratitude. People will notice the change in you. They'll say, you're calmer now. They won't understand that calm came from chaos. That the reason your voice is softer is because it once screamed in the dark for help. That the reason your faith feels unshakable is because it was once held together by a single thread. You'll smile and say nothing, because how do you explain that the storm you feared most became the prayer you thank Allah for every night? The storm is not punishment. It's proof that you're being prepared for something higher. Every prophet was tested with storms far greater than yours, and yet through those storms they became examples of resilience. You too are being shaped for your own purpose, something you cannot fulfill until you've tasted surrender. And surrender doesn't come through ease, it comes through exhaustion. When you've tried every door and all of them close, you finally stop knocking and fall to your knees. That moment of giving up on control and giving into trust is where real power begins. From the outside, surrender looks like defeat, but in the unseen, it's victory. Because when you stop fighting the storm, you start flowing with it, and suddenly it carries you to places your strength alone never could. That's when you understand what you thought was drowning was actually being carried home. The person who emerges from the storm is not the same one who walked into it. The storm destroys your illusions, but it also delivers your truth. You stop saying, why me? And start saying, Alhamdulillah, it was me, because He trusted me to handle it. You stop seeing tests as signs of anger and start seeing them as invitations to closeness. You realize that every thunder, every lightning strike was just the sound of your destiny being rewritten. And the most beautiful part, you stop fearing storms altogether. Because now you know the secret. You and the storm were never enemies. You were partners in transformation. The storm didn't come to end you. It came to unfold you, to introduce you to the side of yourself that only chaos could reveal. One day, you'll stand before another storm, and instead of trembling, you'll smile. Because now you recognize it. You'll say, I know this feeling. This is how Allah teaches me again. You'll take a deep breath, raise your hands and whisper, Bismillah, let's begin. And the winds will blow, but your heart will remain still, because it's anchored to the one who commands every storm to begin and end. That's what the storm was sent to teach you. That peace is not found when the winds stop blowing. Peace is found when you trust the one who controls the wind. And once you've learned that, no storm can ever scare you again. You were being prepared, not punished. There are moments in life when your soul whispers, why me? When you look at your struggles, your heartbreak, your endless waiting, and deep inside, you wonder if Allah is displeased with you. You see others laughing while you cry. You see doors opening for them while they keep closing for you. And a quiet thought forms in your heart. Maybe I'm being punished. But that's where most people misunderstand the mercy of Allah. Because what you call punishment might actually be preparation. Every time Allah chooses someone for greatness, He first takes them through loneliness. Every time He plans to elevate a soul, He allows it to be shaken, emptied, and rebuilt. It's not anger, it's construction. You can't build a palace on weak foundations. So He breaks what was unstable, removes what was false, and strengthens what is real. Your heartbreak wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Your delay wasn't neglect, it was protection. You see, when Allah loves you, He doesn't always bless you with ease. He blesses you with growth. Ease makes you comfortable, but growth makes you capable. And capability only comes through struggle. When He loves you, He'll remove the distractions that keep you small. He'll take away the people who keep you dependent. He'll silence the noise that keeps you blind to your own potential. It will feel like loss, but it's divine organization. You were not being left behind. You were being realigned. Preparation often disguises itself as pain. When you're in it, it looks like everything is falling apart. But when you look back, you'll see that everything was falling into place. He was never punishing you. He was polishing you because He knows what you don't. That the version of you that can carry your destiny is not the version of you that's comfortable. So He strips away what's fragile to reveal what's faithful. Think about the people Allah used for greatness. They were never made in comfort. They were made in caves, in prisons, in deserts, in silence. Because isolation is not punishment, it's where revelation begins. You were wondering why He took everyone away. Now you know. Because what He wanted to give you couldn't be shared with everyone. Some blessings are private. Some lessons are sacred. And sometimes the only way to teach your soul is to take away its audience. You cried thinking He forgot you, but in reality He was giving you His full attention. He was cleaning your heart so His light could fit inside it. He removed what distracted you so you could finally recognize your own worth. He allowed certain doors to close so you could stop begging for scraps. When He was preparing a feast you couldn't yet see. Preparation hurts because it dismantles your comfort zone. You've been asking Allah for strength, so He sent challenges to build it. You asked Him for patience, so He gave you situations that require it. You asked Him for closeness, so He removed everything that kept you far. You thought it was punishment, but it was the answer to your own dua. He was not testing you to see if you'd fail. He was revealing how deeply you could trust Him. Every sleepless night, every tear you wiped alone, every prayer you whispered in exhaustion, they weren't ignored. They were being recorded as evidence of your growth. You see, Allah doesn't train weak hearts. He trains the ones He intends to use. And you, yes, you are one of them. Sometimes the pain you call unbearable is the exact fire that's refining you. He knows how much heat your heart can handle. He knows when to cool it down. He knows when to lift you out. The same fire that burned you will one day be the warmth that fuels your wisdom. You will thank Him later for every night you thought would never end. You were not being punished. You were being promoted quietly. While you were crying, He was strengthening your roots. While you were breaking, He was building your wings. While you were waiting, He was writing your story in golden ink, line by line, unseen but perfect. Preparation is lonely because greatness is heavy. Not everyone can carry what you are being shaped to carry. So Allah separated you. He took away the noise, the comfort, the people, not because He wanted you to suffer, but because He wanted you to listen. He whispered into your silence, you are not forgotten, you are in training. You can't skip divine training. You can't rush refinement. If diamonds were made in minutes, they'd be glass. Pressure and time are both required. And you, my dear soul, are under divine craftsmanship. He's cutting away what's dull. He's polishing what's hidden. He's making sure that when He finally reveals you, the world will see His light shining through you. You are not being punished, you are being trusted. If He didn't see something sacred inside you, He wouldn't test you this way. The storm wouldn't come near you. the delay wouldn't last this long. The pain wouldn't go this deep. He's investing effort into you because He knows what you can become. You're not being forgotten. You're being forged. When you're being prepared, life feels slower. The days blur, the du'as feel unanswered, and you start to wonder if He still hears you. But Allah's silence is not neglect, it's precision. He's preparing not only the gift, but the heart that will receive it. Because blessings that arrive too soon often destroy unready hearts. So He waits. He waits until you've learned the patience that can protect what you're about to receive. You'll notice that as He prepares you, your standards change. You stop chasing people who don't value you. You stop seeking approval from those who never understood you. You start craving depth over attention, peace over pleasure, faith over fame. That's how you know preparation is working. It changes your taste for this world. You were once desperate for acceptance. Now you just want alignment. You were once chasing noise. Now you crave silence. You were once praying for comfort. Now you pray for clarity. You've outgrown who you were. You were not being punished. You were being transformed from someone who depended on the world into someone who depends on Allah alone. And that's the greatest preparation of all. He's removing your reliance on the temporary so He can anchor you to the eternal. He's showing you that peace was never out there. It was always inside. You just couldn't hear it over the noise. The people you lost were not your punishment. They were part of your purification. The opportunities you missed were not failures. They were doors He closed so you wouldn't walk into rooms unfit for your soul. You weren't being delayed. You were being decorated. When He's done, you'll carry a glow that no pain could dim, and a peace that no world can steal. Because what you went through wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build your faith until it became unshakable. You look back one day and understand that every unanswered prayer was mercy wearing a disguise. That every heartbreak was an escort leading you to peace. That every no was protecting you from something far smaller than what was coming. So when you find yourself in pain again, don't ask, what did I do wrong? Ask instead, what is Allah trying to teach me right now? Because He doesn't punish those He loves. He prepares them. And when you're finally ready, He reveals why it all had to happen exactly the way it did. There comes a day quietly, without warning, when the pain that once suffocated you no longer hurts the same way. You wake up, breathe deeply, and realize you survived. Not only that you've changed, you walk differently now. You speak more gently. You listen more deeply. You no longer crave what used to tempt you. The noise that once distracted you doesn't even reach your heart anymore. That's when you know the preparation worked. You see, Allah never intended for your story to end in heartbreak. He just needed to rebuild the person inside the story. He needed to teach you that happiness is not in the outcome. It's in the obedience. That peace is not in getting what you want. It's in trusting the one who knows what's best. Every test, every loss, every disappointment was never about what you lost on the outside. It was about what you gained inside. You gained empathy because now you know what real pain feels like. You gained wisdom because you've seen how temporary the world can be. You gained humility because you realized your strength was never your own. And above all, you gained connection because the storm that hurt you also brought you to your knees in sujood. That sujood wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. It was the exact moment your preparation turned into awakening. There is a divine pattern hidden in every trial. First, He empties you, then He educates you, then He elevates you. The emptiness feels cruel, but it's mercy disguised as loss. Because you cannot receive something new while clinging to something old. He has to clear the shelf of your heart before He can fill it with gifts meant only for you. That clearing hurts, but imagine how heavy your soul would be if He let you carry everything you've outgrown. Preparation feels lonely because it happens in silence. He works on you in seasons when nobody is watching, when you think you're forgotten, but He's never been more attentive. It's in those quiet, invisible seasons that you start learning how to talk to Him like a friend, how to rely on Him like a child, and how to love Him without needing proof. That's what preparation builds. A bond so deep that no distance, no loss, no silence can break it. When the time finally comes for you to rise again, you'll notice the difference immediately. Before, you used to run after blessings. Now, blessings start finding you. Before, you used to chase people. Now, people are drawn to your calm. You'll realize that the very things you thought were punishment actually purified your aura. They gave your soul a glow, the kind that can't be faked. Pain has a strange beauty. It makes you real. It makes you human again. It brings softness to the heart, clarity to the mind, and light to the eyes. Allah prepared you through pain because He wanted you to carry peace wherever you go. He wanted to teach you how to guide others through the same darkness you once feared. That's why your pain lasted so long. It wasn't just about you. It was about the people you'd one day help. He couldn't give you empathy through lectures. He gave it to you through experience. He made you taste heartbreak so you could heal hearts. He made you taste loss so you could teach others to find meaning again. Now you understand the whispers that once confused you. You see that everything that hurt you was preparing you to help others heal. You are not the same person anymore. You are someone softer, wiser, deeper. You no longer just believe in Allah, you know Him. Because He met you in your pain, He comforted you in your tears, and He raised you in your patience. That knowledge is sacred. It can't be taught. It can only be earned. People might look at your story and only see the hardship. They won't know the nights you stayed awake whispering His name, the times you wanted to give up but didn't, the quiet battles you fought between despair and faith. But Allah saw it all. Every tear was recorded, every whisper was answered, every breakdown was witnessed with mercy. And now He's preparing to turn every ounce of that pain into purpose. He didn't bring you this far to leave you. The same one who walked you through the fire will now walk you into the light. He will show you why certain things didn't work, why certain people couldn't stay, why certain dreams had to wait. And when you see it, you'll smile through tears and say, Subhanallah, if I had gotten what I wanted, I would have missed what I needed. That's when you finally understand that His plan was not just better, it was perfect. You were never being punished. You were being promoted to a higher spiritual rank, a rank that required patience, surrender, and faith in the unseen. You didn't fail, you graduated. You now carry the kind of wisdom that can't be bought, only built through years of surrender. You carry the peace of someone who knows that Allah's timing is never late and His silence is never empty. The you that's walking out of this season is not the same you that walked in. You've been rewritten, rewired, reborn. Your faith has grown deeper roots. Your heart has become a garden where hope can bloom again. And your soul now carries the golden whisper that only the tested can hear. It was all preparation. Soon you'll start seeing the wisdom unfold. Doors will open that make you forget every door that closed. People will arrive who make you realize why the others had to leave. Opportunities will come that fit you perfectly because now you've become the version of yourself that was ready to receive them. It wasn't delay, it was design. Look at your scars, they're not ugly. They're proof that Allah healed you. They're the roadmap of your journey back to Him. They remind you that pain never lasts forever and that Allah's mercy always arrives on time. You were never buried. You were planted and now you're blooming. The whisper in your soul was right all along. You were being prepared, not punished. Prepared for clarity, prepared for maturity, prepared for peace, prepared for purpose. And now, when life tests you again, And you'll smile through the tears and say, this isn't punishment. This is preparation again. Because once a soul learns how Allah works, storms don't scare it anymore. They become signs. They become sacred reminders. And that is the golden whisper that will carry you through every chapter of life to come. He was never angry with you. He was building you, and you were being chosen quietly, beautifully, mercifully all along. And now, after everything you've felt, everything you've faced, and every tear you've cried in silence, you can finally see what you couldn't before. That test you thought was breaking you was building you. That delay you thought was rejection was protection. And the pain you thought was punishment was preparation. You see, Allah was never against you. He was guarding you. He was rearranging the path so you could finally walk toward what was written for you, not what you were chasing blindly. Every time you thought you were falling behind, you were actually being carried forward, just not in the way you expected. The loss, the waiting, the heartbreak, it all had a purpose. To return your heart to the only place it truly belongs. So if you're still in your test right now, don't rush it, don't curse it, and don't lose hope, because this pain will not last forever. But the person you're becoming through it will last beyond this world. When you look back, you'll whisper through grateful tears, if Allah hadn't taken that from me, I would have never found what I was made for. So hold on, keep trusting, keep praying, even when it's hard to speak, keep believing, even when you can't see the way. Because the very test that made you cry today will one day be the reason you smile and say, Alhamdulillah, it all makes sense now. And when that day comes, you'll finally realize you were never being punished, you were being chosen, you were being protected, you were being prepared. And that one test wasn't the end of your journey, it was the beginning of your destiny.